2005 First Impressions of Earth, which was kind of their, I don't know what I wanted, their We Need to Evolve album. Just like their last album, this did not go well critically. I think like Pitchfork gave it a 5 out of 10. This did not do well.
But Juicebox was the Strokes' second UK top 10 hit and their second US modern rock top 10 hit. So it didn't do terribly.
I'm going to start with Evil. Evil, First Impressions of Earth. Kari and I both chose this as your favorite album. What are your impressions on First Impressions?
I think that it is a very different thing to be able to experience a band's 20-year career in a couple of weeks than it is to experience it as they are sort of progressing through their career. I was able to listen to 6 albums and hear this kind of deliberate progression and playfulness and experimentation that they were doing, truncated period of time. This album was panned fairly badly by critics. I think I can see maybe why, knowing the story of the band, but I don't think it was fair. If we were doing one of our other episodes, did this age poorly? How was it? How underrated, overrated then versus now? I think it was very underrated then, and I feel like it's looked back upon now through more objective goggles by most people. It seems like there are more fans of this album today than there were then. I like this album. It's their heaviest album by far.
It is their heaviest.
It's also one of their longest albums. Like 2 of their albums are longer than the rest. Most of them are clocking just barely over a half hour. Got to be honest.
God bless them.
Right? I mean, you know me, like get in, get out, get it done. The first time I listened to it, I didn't like it because it was too long. I'm like, I don't want to listen to this, all of this Strokes music, because I got other stuff to listen to, But when I kind of settled into the vibe of listening to the band, this one grew on me more and more. It did not get a fair shake in its time. I
agree. Kari, do you agree? Do you disagree?
That it got a
everything that Evil just said.
Point
by point. I hope you're taking notes.
Got it.
She's up to 14 pages by now.
Yep.
One of the things that we'll probably talk about a little bit later, or maybe now, the different producers, and I think you touched on it earlier.
Yeah.
And the thing that stood out for me, which is really, I started researching the producers, because that's like my producer brain goes into who did this. And they added this guy, and I don't know if I think it's David Kahn or Kane. I'm not sure how you say it. I think it's Kahn. He produced Paul McCartney.
Nobody big.
Tony Bennett. Those are
and Sublime.
And Sublime. And I was like, well, okay, there it is, right? Like there's that influence, the heaviness, the crunchiness, the letting go a little bit of that restraint, finding a little bit of messiness that I was hoping for. One thing that I do a lot when I'm listening to new music that I've never heard before is I listen to it with headphones on super low volume so that if something pops out at me, I want to listen to that.
Interesting.
And so I'll go through the whole album at like incredibly low volume. And then as soon as something pops, I'll write down the track number. And then I'll go back and listen to it in the order of, do I sound like a serial killer? Wow.
No, it's just a fascinating, I've never thought of doing it that.
Yeah. I'll go and listen to it in the order because as a musician, they tell you like always put your 3 strongest songs at the top of your album, right? Because no matter what, whether it's on an album, a CD, streaming, whatever, that's the first thing that you want people to hear. But with this stuff, very, very often, it would be like track 4 or 6 before I wrote something down. And then when I did, I was like, okay, this makes sense. And this album for me, I mean, despite everything that was going on in the background, it felt more cohesive to me. It felt stronger to me. It felt like they really cared about this music. Not that they didn't care about the first album, but that it's like they tried harder and they tried more to make it something.
They sounded like they really cared about this one.
Yep.
Yeah.
I agree.
And I really liked this album out of all of them.
I completely agree. I do think that you are very, very onto something with this grittiness that they were getting into, because it was originally David and Raphael that were producing this together, and they eventually kicked Raphael to the curb and said that it's not working. And I think maybe it's because David was pushing them farther to that brink and Raphael didn't like it. But who knows, because every fucking Strokes album, they end up kicking some producer to the curb because of whatever. That's one of the things I love about this band, is there's no feel for this band. I think this album's fantastic. This was the album that made me realize, and this kind of speaks to some of the things we were talking about, that as fans, we can be fucking terrible. Absolutely terrible. I remember clamoring so hard for this album release and being so disappointed when I heard just like a few songs that just weren't the Strokes, you know?
Yeah.
It's completely unfair. As a band, why the fuck would you want to just keep coming out with Is This It over and over and over? This album, along with Our Love to Admire by Interpol, was a big soundtrack for me being in Reno. Man, when this album came out, I was a little rough on it when I first heard, like, with like Juicebox and whatever I don't remember what the other single was when it first came out, but I ended up listening to it 800 times. What both of you were talking about is that, you know, those albums where nothing really happens the first time you listen to it, but then you keep listening to it and all of a sudden there's some weird fucking harmonizing in track 7 where you're like, whoa, wait, what was that?
Yeah.
And then that song you just listen to over and then all of a sudden you're like, wait, track 12, what the fuck's going? That's this album for me.
You know, when I listened to the Needle Drop talk about this record and him saying how it was too loud and too heavy, I'm like, I'm going to fucking love this record.
Kari, what's your favorite or best song, however you positioned it, on First Impressions of Earth?
My favorite song was Heart in a Cage. I thought the best song was Juicebox. Just commercially, because I didn't know we were like... Ugh.
Don't explain your amazing answer.
No.
Just shut up and just be happy.
Sorry, I'm new at this. I'm just trying to fit in.
Kari, that was the best answer you could have done. Evil, what about you?
Anyone who coined YOLO before Drake gets my vote. So, You Only Live Once, I think, is a fucking great
so
track.
Good.
I could have picked so many from this album as best or my favorite, but I went with it. It caught me out of like
that beginning with him hitting the stand on the hi-hat, the ting, 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 ting.
It just pulls you into the album when the guitars come in and it opens up, and it's great. It's a great album opener.
I'm going with my favorite being, it's not my favorite. I'm going to do what Kari did. I'm going to do what I'm going to say my favorite is Electric Cityscape.
Good one.
That driving drum beat. I love that. And then I think the best song, if there was a song that I was going to give to somebody to say that this is the Strokes at their best, this is the guitars, the bass, the drums, and Julian just completely full bore, 100% perfection. It's a Vision of Division. Yeah, everybody go listen to that song. It's fucking amazing.
The opening riff to that song might be the favorite thing that they've ever done for me.
Oh, well, I win. Good job.
That's crazy because that song got panned like one of the hardest pans.
Which, dude, how?
It's just interesting, right? Because the critics versus the audience, it's the Rotten Tomatoes of music. So.
I like that. They decide that they don't like to be a band anymore because of how fucking panned this album got. And they wait until 2011 to do Angles. This album took more than 2 years, mostly because of the way that they recorded it, which everybody in the band fucking hated because they didn't record it together. There are a lot of quotes out there from other band members saying Julian was never there. He wrote the songs and he wasn't fucking there. I would never do an album like this again, that sort of thing. I think this speaks a lot to the struggles they were having with their label and how at this point, I'm not sure they wanted to be a band, but they were being forced to be a band. Kari, what are your thoughts on Angles?
For me, it was a tough listen. I didn't know about the sort of problems between them and the fact that it almost didn't get done because they were doing it in such a disjointed way.
Yeah.
And, you know, the snarky comments about how this was the only way to make everybody happy. This was the ultimate in compromise, you know, by letting it be a highly collaborative work, that they had never done that before, you know, and you kind of feel that the whole thing has this very much like, oh, we're going to go this way. Nope, we're going this way. Nope. You know, because some of it had a really kind of cool 80s vibe, like new wave vibe. Sometimes it just went a completely opposite direction. And it was like, what is this? And I think if you listen to that album as singles, that it would feel better, you know, but as a body of work, as 100%. A piece. But then I read a really interesting quote from Julian. It's from 2014, so it was after all of this, but he was kind of referring back to this time. And he said, a band is a great way to destroy a friendship. A tour is a great way to destroy a band. And I was like, damn, there it is, right there, you know? It's so true. And so, you know, they were going through shit. There were issues with substances. And again, I go back to that whole thing of like, when you're hyped up that much and then things start to go poorly.
Yeah.
You know, there really isn't anywhere you can go.
Yes.
So this was maybe a way for them to say, hey, let's give something new a try. Let's try all working together, except Julian's going to email in his vocals. Like,
completely agree. In comparison to the Rolling Stones, they aren't that good of a rock band, because I was going to say, how long can you just fucking go on a bender? A decade of a bender, it just doesn't work, but it works for some people.
Kari said a brilliant thing is, if you listen to it as singles, it kind of makes sense. There's definitely an 80s vibe. This is the album where I really picked up on the Cars as an influence, like a heavy, heavy influence. Two Kinds of Happiness in particular, that song like just screams the Cars at me. What surprised me is like I took this band's catalog in a couple of weeks, and I look back and like critically they're like, this is like a return to form for the Strokes. I'm like, what the fuck are you talking about? Because it's so disjointed and all over the place. It's like a weird collection of ideas, and some of them are really interesting, but I don't know if they all work well together. As individual tracks, I think there's some strong tracks, but as an album, I don't know what's going on. It's super bizarre.
I remember when this came out being super excited. I mean, I'm not even going to keep, you know, who didn't like this album. The fucking Strokes didn't like this album. If the Strokes didn't like this album, how the fuck are we supposed to like this album? Kari said it best. There are singles on here that are fantastic. There are cool aspects of this, but I agree. I think it's disjointed. One of the issues that I have with the Strokes is that later on in their career, they didn't give a fuck anymore. And it's really hard to root for a band that doesn't give a fuck. Really hard. I remember the juxtaposition between I've seen this band 3 times. The first band was at that End Fest I talked about, which was amazing. You know, they're drinking, they're going nuts, they're falling off the stage. The last time I saw them was in Canada, probably about 3 years ago. And their stage thing was basically that it was a too cool vibe. It was I'm up here and it's whatever, and I don't really need to be up here kind of thing. And it was so unlikable. I was also fucking on the floor and old. And that was the first concert that I realized, like, I should not be in general admission right now. What the fuck am I doing here?
When I researched the producer for this album, Joe Ciccavelli or Ciccavelli.
Guess as good as mine on that.
Okay. Well, the reason I went down that path was because I read an article that said Pharrell had shown interest in producing this album. Ultimately didn't get it, which I don't know if that's good or bad, but this Joe Ciccavelli got it. And I look him up and I'm like, holy shit. This guy has produced Frank Zappa, Morrissey, Spoon, The Shins, My Morning Jacket, Counting Crows, U2, Tori Amos, The Killers, Alanis Morissette, and Jason Mraz. When I looked at that and I was like, whoa, that's all over the place, right? Again, you're working with a producer who has so many influences that maybe that's part of the reason they ended up sounding a little bit disjointed. I don't know, you know.
When they also didn't like doing the album with him.
Okay.
The Strokes have talked about how they didn't like the way that he produced.
Okay. So it's kind of like they just went through, you know.
Exactly.
Which is hard on a band. That's really
Very
hard on a
hard
band, you know?
And it's also kind of their own fault. Like, what the fuck are you doing? Kari, what is your favorite song on this?
Gratisfaction.
Gratisfaction. That's a made-up word.
It is. Yeah, it's a good one.
Evil, what about you?
Under Cover of Darkness. It's kind of bouncy and happy.
That's the Strokes.
Yeah.
I mean, I shouldn't say that, but it's old school Strokes.
Yeah.
Like, it kind of reminds me of You Only Live Once. It's that kind of style of Strokes. What about 2013's Come Down Machine? So Come Down Machine, 2013 through RCA Records, the band pulls a complete media blackout. They basically, from what I have gathered, which they didn't just come out and say, they didn't want to do this fucking album. RCA made them do this album. Hence them doing the media blackout. Hence them basically not doing a cover. RCA's traditional what the fuck ever, make that the cover. But here's the thing. I think this album is pretty fucking well put together. And I do think that this speaks to a little bit of, if you are a tight band that does love each other and you do get in the studio together like they did on this one, there's some good fucking shit on this album. Evil, what did you think about Come Down Machine?
I think it is a much more cohesive album than the previous album. It doesn't sound like a album by the Strokes. It sounds like a side project. So as an album, as a group of songs, feels much more cohesive, feels like it goes together as a artistic endeavor. It's too chill for me too, also. let's be real. It's just way too chill.
Kari, what about you? What did you think of Come Down Machine?
I mirror Evil a lot on this, except for the part about it being too chill, because I kind of like that. And it was kind of the loungiest of their work. One quote that I read was like, it was about the album cover. They created a mixtape of all their favorite songs from things that they were working on, and then just put it in a cassette, you know, with, and I was like, yeah, that really speaks to it, because, you know, it does feel like a project. It definitely feels like it has, you know, beginning, middle, and an end. It has a general theme. To me, it's not quite as interesting, I think, as, you know, First Impressions. It kind of feels like they knew they had to put something out.
Yeah.
I can see that. Like I said, I think it's way more put together than the last album. There are songs on this one that I think are incredible. What's your favorite song on it, Evil?
Welcome to Japan is my favorite song on it.
Me too.
Me 3.
Whoa.
Yeah.
Tripletsing.
Welcome to Japan's fucking awesome, dude. That's such a good song. Yeah. The New Abnormal, 2020. It is their latest album. It just came out 3 years ago. Rick Rubin.
Who's that guy?
Yeah. Decides to throw his hat in and do this one. Fuck it. The influence is just so much different than their earlier stuff.
Yeah.
This album to me is so much more of a sit down and pay attention album. You know, if I'm driving in the car or I'm doing whatever and this album comes on, I'm not so into it. But then when I sat down to study for this and had the lyrics up and was really paying attention to the music, this album's got a lot going on. Kari, what did you think about the New Abnormal?
So this was actually the first album I listened to studying for this, because I wanted to start with the newest stuff. Since I knew the first album, I was like, yeah, I'm gonna do it backwards. The first thing that struck me was the cover, because I'm a huge Jean-Michel Basquiat nerd.
Oh.
And that painting in particular, it was for Charlie Parker, because it's called Bird on Money. And that was Charlie Parker's nickname was Bird. And so when I saw it, I was like, oh my gosh, if you don't know who Jean-Michel Basquiat was a painter, very underground at first. He was from New York, and kind of like the Strokes, it was like overnight success. He was doing these paintings and he got picked up and basically became huge, made a shit ton of money, and then became a heroin addict. He was actually with Madonna for a while. Like he was on the scene. He was the guy. And his work is so expressive and so full of color. And when he got hooked on heroin, he died a really tragic death in the street. It was really, really tragic story. But the work that came out of his very, very short career is absolutely incredible.
I foresee a YouTube episode in Evil and Kari's future.
If they're using a Basquiat print, I'm already, way more than halfway there. The second thing I noticed was he finally, for God's sake, lost the vocal affectation, like the filters and shit that I just hate. I want to hear the voice. I want to hear the voice. Well, you save
that for the end.
Hey, girl's got to keep something under her hat.
That thing the Strokes did their whole career? I fucking hate that.
I did, and I do, honestly. So the first song, I was like, oh my God, it's not there. I was so happy. The next thing I noticed was like, oh my gosh, this guy has actually been working on his falsetto. Now it's not just this affected falsetto. It's a real, true falsetto. I was like, wow, okay. Thank you so much. And the timing of naming it The New Abnormal, for me, like it came out in 2020, and it's like I read about that because I read about everything, and it was actually a quote from the former governor of California who was talking about the California wildfires in 2018, and he mentioned the phrase, well, this is the new abnormal, and the Strokes picked that up and loved it. But then 2020 happens, and how many times did people say this is the new normal? I didn't even know this album existed. So all those things, like, put them all together. Then plus, like, there was this song that I heard, and I was like, oh my gosh, this is totally a Billy Idol song. I was super pissed. And then I went back to the notes, and there he is in the credits. I'm like, okay, all right.
Bad Decisions is an interesting piece of art. He does give credit to Billy Idol. It's his chord structure. It's his take on fame, playing songs that they want to play instead of what the fans want, which is a complete fuck you to people like me, and I love it. I completely love it. Because Bad Decisions is basically dancing with myself. And
also it reminded me hugely, and I'm like, well, of course there are modern English fans, because it's also I Melt With You.
Oh, fuck. Yes.
It sounded so much like Keane to me, too. I don't know if you guys know the band Keane.
Jesus,
but I was like, the melodies and some of the counter melodies, I was just like, oh, man, like you said, the influences were so different, and it really made me feel differently going back and listening to all the rest of the catalog.
It got really well reviewed by critics this time. I don't know if that's a Rick Rubin thing. I don't know why. This almost works as sort of a, not a concept album, but I do love that at the beginning, there's a lot on his love and his dependency on specific relationships, and it being this kind of bright thing. And then towards the end of the album, it becomes the dependency on these relationships that's really ruining them, and what's whatever stupid toxicity word or whatever you want to use for relationships. It's such a complete opposite of their first album, where you really, really have to get down into the nitty gritty to understand this album. It's like the exact opposite.
That is interesting bookends, because going back to the discussion we had about them at that age, like they didn't have experience. They were kind of winging it, versus this album where they have the experience and the life as a band and all the ups and downs and ins and outs and critics hating them. And now it's much more complex. That's a good take.
Evil, what's your best song? What song do you like?
I like that both of you mentioned Bad Decisions. It's not the one I'm going to mention, but that I put it down as like, make sure you talk about this, because Billy Idol, modern English. Yeah. Brooklyn Bridge to Chorus is the one that got me for some reason.
Because it's fucking awesome.
Yeah. maybe that's it.
Yeah. Kari, what about you?
The Adults Are Talking. Great opener. And for me, just like melodically, finally, I was like, fuck, finally.
Maybe it is our favorite Evil. Maybe we're going to be okay.
That track also, it's got like this Mike Mothersbaugh feeling, like Devo. Like I feel like they are heavily influenced by Devo.
Interesting.
Like if you took
even just the beginning,
but throughout their whole career, if you took their guitars on their first album and made those electronic, it's Devo.
I didn't hear that, but I can hear it now.
Brooklyn Bridge to Chorus, man. And that 80s song, How Did It Go? I want new friends, but they don't want me. That's kind of what we were talking about with Julian's lines, man.
That's a great line.
We got to take a break. I mean, for fuck's sake, this might be a double. Sorry, Kari. I told you we were throwing you into the deep end. We're going to take a break. We'll be right back. We are back. Let's get into the second half of this. It won't be as long, I promise you.
The second half?
Are we in the final third?
We'll see. How big? Jesus Christ. How good is the band name, the song titles, the album covers, the art? Evil, I'm going to starting with you.
Starting.
Because you are our art man. You might have a little competition now, though. Where do you stand on these God, fuck, I can't talk. Where do you start? Where do you stand on these album covers? The art of the Strokes. Where do you stand?
I feel like they surf the tides of whatever sort of genre or direction they're going with their album covers. They feel like they're very heavily curated. I was surprised that the RCA one was just sort of like, fuck it, just put the...
It was kind of a fuck you to the label is what it was.
That in itself is a curated decision.
Absolutely.
I kind of like that, actually.
And joke's on them because it's a good fucking cover.
Yeah, it is. It reminds me a little bit of Rated R by Queens of the Stone Age, which is always a good thing.
Yeah.
Angles has an 80s-ish vibe to it. Their name, The Strokes, I think if I were to rewind to when they first came out and been like, is that a genius name? I don't know if I would have said yes. But how many bands are like the whatevers?
Oh, yeah.
The Hives, the
Killers, the Hives, the Vines.
Yes.
The Pogues, the Pixies. Yeah. Sorry.
She's poking fun. She's throwing shade at me. This is hilarious. I like this. The Pogues and the Pixies, of course. But they were very deliberately curating being a throwback band.
Well, you look at the logo that they had that was on every fucking hipster's shirt for 10 years. That silver chrome, the Strokes. I might have that fucking shirt. They themselves were kind of a aesthetic.
It was a decision. I mean, come on. Like, Julian's father was a modeling agency.
Yeah.
They're very deliberate about their fashion choices.
Yep.
They're incredibly astute in making artistic and fashion decisions in a way that will make them money.
I think you're right. I think you're right. I don't think that they how do I word this? Kari, I'm going to think while you talk. What are your thoughts on the art of the Strokes?
The art is, I think, highly stylized. I'm really bummed out that very first album cover didn't stick.
Agreed.
You know, first impressions, it's like, okay, it feels a little art schooly to me. Like angles, fits, Evil said the 80s sound. Have you guys seen their website?
No.
Open their website right now.
It is like they have
it is like an 80s computer. It's brilliant, in my opinion. The website
it's pixelated. It's like 8-bit. That's interesting. Yeah.
It's really clever.
King's Quest.
Again, it's one of those things that's like almost too clever, you know, it's for its own good.
It's very curated.
It's very curated. It's very stylized.
This is like Windows 3.1.
I think the artwork is effective. I was very surprised on the new Abnormal to see an actual art piece.
Yeah.
Not just because that, I don't know how much money that must have cost, but also because it shows a level of maturity in terms of like, this is an actual piece of art as opposed to making something feel purposely fitting the theme of the music, but not really being artistic. Does that make sense?
It absolutely makes sense.
This website is so fucking stupid.
The website's great. It's great though. I love it. And if you really like click through stuff, you get lost in it, and it's very cool.
The screensaver, it looks like GeoCity. It looks like Angel Fire or GeoCities. Oh my God.
I mean, at least it's not the Oregon Trail, but it's pretty cool.
If they had Oregon Trail on there, I would be on it every day.
I'd be winning. The name, I think, is really great. I think the name is graphic. I think the name like says a lot, and it can go many different ways. Kind of love that it was like a throwaway, because you know how many times you've been in a band where you're like, what should we name ourselves?
You have to bring
and
10 names a day, and everybody's like, fuck it, do that
Yeah.
one. Who cares?
Yeah, that one we're done.
I love the name. I do. I love the aesthetic. I loved the same thing. The art of the first album was awesome. I'm a little bummed now that I know more about it, but hey, that's life. It sucks and then you die. How timeless is the band's music? This is a good question for you two, because you did hear the first album when it was kind of its perfect time. And then the, whatever you want to call it, the fast forward of the listening to the whole discography in 2 or 3 weeks or whatever.
I feel like the work that they're known for, like their seminal work, first couple of albums, is very much early 2000s sounding. Mm-hmm. I don't know if that's fair to spread that across their entire catalog, but at the same time, their experimentation sort of like follows the trends that have come since then. Maybe that's even more dated in a way, now that I think about it. I need to listen to their most recent album more, because Rick Rubin squeezed genius out of things that initially don't seem like genius. I think that album's going to grow on me the most.
Speaking to that, it is the album that after studying for this, you do need the most time with to really get.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's not timeless, but I do think that the single from the first album, Last Night, if you reworked it even a tiny bit, it could still be released today. Mm-hmm. I think that's probably one of the only songs that you could do that with where it would stand the test of time. Everything else to me is of a time.
One of the things that we have always said on this podcast is that if you have the same band members for all the albums, you've got a good fucking band. That's one of the big things about them, is all the shit that they've gone through, that put each other through, that Julian's put them through, all the producers they've gone through. It's the same 5 guys. I think the fact that even on the albums where they were just kind of like, fuck this, it's still good, which is silly. Kari, what are your thoughts on the band, the dudes?
Thoughts are, I mean, almost exactly that. The longevity, keeping the same 5 people, that's unbelievable. That doesn't happen. So that's a testament to, you know, probably in my mind, it's a testament to their relationship as kids. Sometimes you just spark with somebody when you're little, even though, you know, some of them met later. It's like there's a time in your life where you can hang on to those same people for a really, really long time. If you do and if you can, there's just this history that's so rich. It's undeniable. And I think you'd have to do some pretty awful, rotten shit to lose that. And these guys seem like they've been able to get through it. I think a 20+ year career is extremely admirable.
2030 isn't far away. It's 2023. It's like in the second half of 2023 now.
You do that?
In 2030, these guys are going to be in their 50s. The Strokes are going to be in their 50s.
And we will be in our...
It doesn't matter at this point. I want to see what else they have in their tank.
I personally think they're done. I don't think they'll ever do anything again together.
I agree.
I might just be projecting off of that last concert I went to, but I really feel like, and it's a bummer because as far as them being my favorite band of all time, they probably would be a high contender if it wasn't for the fact that it really feels like they didn't give a shit about being a band the last time I saw them, and even some of the things I heard about some of the last couple albums they did. So I just don't know if they. I don't think they will ever come out with an album again. What?
In October 2022, Rick Rubin revealed he'd been recording a new album with the Strokes in Costa Rica.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, it's Angles 2.0. Really though? Mm-hmm. Do you think they'll ever come out with it?
Who knows?
Strokes are currently working on their 7th album.
I don't know.
April of 2023. Super producer Rick Rubin. Well, good. I hope they do. I think. I don't know, man. Let's talk. It's hard, you know. Like I don't know.
Okay, so here to like put an actual pin in that. It's like I read a lot of articles that said there are so many bands that decided to stop, right? And the Strokes are not one of them. That can be seen as a tenacious this is who we are, this is what we do, or it can be seen as like doing a 15th season of Seinfeld. Like, just stop. Like, stop while you're ahead.
You're saying they're a tenacious F.
Don't laugh that hard, Kari.
Sorry. That's funny. That's cute.
This will be an interesting one. I'm very excited to hear the answers to this. Evil, what's your 5th favorite Strokes song as of now?
Oh my God. This list changed so much.
Which is going to happen when you're kind of listening for the first time to a band.
Yeah, and my top 5 is not interesting at all. It's going to be very predictable.
Oh.
At one point, this was closer to the top, and I've moved it down. It's Vision of Division.
Yes, it's kind of a
great song.
Like I said, it's the Strokes all working at 100%.
Yeah, and the fact that it was like critically panned is criminal.
No, it's who would pan that song? I don't get it. It's an amazing song. Kari, what's your 5th favorite Strokes song?
Ask Me Anything.
I
know. I know.
Yeah.
I'm a ballad lover, and it's the closest thing we'll get to a ballad with them. And it's the one song where I thought, like, this might be somewhat sincere vulnerability. Maybe it sounds more sincere.
Okay.
Than
all right.
Most of them do.
That song reminds me of something that I have not placed it yet. I don't know what it is, but that reminds me of another song.
But what though?
Yeah, now I
like
kind of
it's
really
something
need to
like glycerine or like Bush. It's something like that.
Okay.
Like
maybe that's it, but it reminds me of
instrument
something
and him
like that.
singing.
Yeah. It. I don't think that's it. Maybe it is. I don't know. My old brain might be
I
broken.
can see a connection to glycerine with that.
Yeah.
Which is weird because I also am thinking like, wait, no, that's insane.
Maybe that's why I just don't want to accept it. And maybe that's
your 5th favorite Strokes song.
No, I didn't do favorites. I did the best.
Mine is from the same album, a couple songs before it. It's On the Other Side. It's just a very DL song. Nobody's waiting for me on the other side. That's so fucking cool.
That fucking guitar, that
yeah. It's amazing. It's so good. I'll keep going. I'm going to keep going. So my 4th favorite song by the Strokes is off of Come Down Machine, actually, and it is 50-50. It is I'd say it is the heaviest song that the Strokes do in their last half of their discography.
Yes.
It's fast, it's rough, it's loud, and Julian is just fucking going for it. I love that song. I don't even know what he's saying. I think he say, I will say, don't judge me or something like that. It just sounds so cool. Kari, what's your 4th favorite song?
From Is This It? It's Someday.
Yeah.
Super catchy, really melodic. I think it speaks exactly to that time in the 2000s.
You know, I'm not going to disagree with you. I think it does.
Okay.
Evil, what about you?
I said that my list is boring because it really reflects the top songs I picked for each album. My number 5 is Undercover of Darkness from Angles.
Yeah, it's great.
I think it's the best song.
It's a great song.
It's so good. It's when I was reading the reviews for that album and they're like, it's a return to form. This is the song, like it's the second song. So I'm listening to it. I'm like, oh, great. And then the rest of the album, like, what the fuck was, what are they talking about? Except for those first 2 tracks, you know? But that is a good song. It's a really good song.
What is your 3rd favorite Strokes song?
I could have picked so many songs off this album. And once again, I'm being very boring.
I like that you went album to album, though.
You Only Live Once. Mm-hmm. And really, the only reason I picked that is to shit on Drake one more time because it could have been Juicebox, it could have been Heart in a Cage, it could have been Razorblade, it could have been Vision of Division.
You Only Live Once is so good, though.
It is a great opener.
Mm-hmm.
You guys were pretty smart in the album you picked for me. I'll just say that
right now. Kari, what's your 3rd favorite?
Juicebox. And it's not favorite, but it's best.
Sorry, what is your best?
Sorry, I know that's like such a semantic
Your
thing,
best just makes less sense than your favorite to say.
Well,
I know what I know what I wrote.
I know.
No, Juice Box is
Juice Box.
fucking awesome.
Yeah.
I
just think it's so anthemic, and they have
like
great
Peter Gunn and
If I were to have to guess Evil's favorite Strokes song, it would have been Juice Box.
I have
Really?
to say the same.
Yeah.
Well, it's good. It's really good.
Mine is, it's insane to me that I'm calling this the third best song. It's insane. One of my favorite songs of all time is Heart in a Cage. The guitar part that it kicks in with, but the lyrics in that song too. I don't want what you want. I don't feel what you feel. I'm stuck in a city. I belong in a field. If there was one song that I think Julian was really sounded profound, it's this one. Don't teach me lessons that I've already learned. I really fucking like this song, you guys.
You're kidding.
It's really good. No, I really do. I promise. All our friends are laughing at us. The way that is said, God, it's so good. So I'm going to go down to
turn it around.
Exactly. My number 2, and it is going to speak to an album that we have not talked about tonight.
Oh man, see.
That is foreshadowing.
Yeah, and I'm not sure why. The song is Whatever Happened, which is the opening track from Room on Fire, which we will get into later on. And I'll just leave the first line here. I want to be forgotten and I don't want to be reminded. I think that's one of the coolest lyrics that there's ever been in the history of the earth. Kari, what's your second favorite Strokes song?
It's Heart in a Cage.
Oh my God. Woman after my own heart.
I place that higher than you is a little bit shocking, but cool.
That song's so good. God damn, that song's good. Evil, what about you?
I'm taking some liberties here.
If it's Heart in a Cage, we all have to drink.
It's not.
Okay.
But it is off of the album that we shall not say.
Oh, yes.
And I'm actually doing a 3-way tie.
Well, Kari, don't cry about it.
I based all of my decisions on not the album that shall not be said, spoken. Damn it.
This is all hazing.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah. We planned this.
It has nothing to do with lack
We're
of planning.
actually going to be reviewing Britney Spears immediately after this, right? Got it.
Yep.
Got it.
I'm probably going to have more to say about this album in the future, is my guess. This is cheating so much. I wrote 3 songs and I can't pick. I wanted to put something on this list from
Room on Fire.
Yeah. So I just wrote Reptilia 1251 and The Way It Is.
You're right. That is absolutely cheating.
And this is fair. How?
I could probably do The End Has No End as well. I mean, why not?
What's interesting to me is I'm not sure if any of those are the aesthetic tone-wise that I would have pictured you liking.
Really?
Yeah, they're a little more of the majory poppy kind of, not pop, that's wrong, but the major kind of happy vibe there.
Okay, I'll put me on the spot. If I'm going to pick one, I'm going to pick 1251. I'm going to pick that one.
Interesting.
I love that guitar. It's the Cars.
Oh.
Yeah.
It does. It's kind of that just what I needed
yes.
tone.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
All coming together.
Remember, I like Van Halen, man.
You do?
You can't tell me I don't like happy music.
Panama. Kari, what's your wait, are we on 2 or 1?
We're on 1.
No. Evil, what's your favorite Strokes song?
It's Last Night. I that's the song that hooked me in. The brilliant Kari said that it's the timeless song. So how could I be wrong? And I still think it's probably their best actual guitar solo.
The brilliant Kari said that it's the timeless song. Man.
Yeah.
She worked her way up
I'm getting all
fast.
the love over here. Ooh. Ooh.
Keep backing up my claims.
I'm going to spread that love right back on your sandwich because it's Last Night.
Are you fucking kidding me?
I'm not kidding.
Holy shit.
Honestly, it's the song that I heard when I was 20 and went, oh, wow, that's super catchy. That's like, who is this? Who is this? There isn't a single song, maybe save for someday, that they've, put out, at least commercially, where I've gone, who is this? What is this? Last night, it just hooks you immediately. And I still think it could be popular today.
Kari, do you have a drink in your vicinity?
I can get one.
I mean, I feel like you guys should probably cheers for what just happened.
We should probably,
you guys both picked you guys both had the number one favorite best.
Okay, well, I'll go get a drink if it's yours as well.
It's not.
Okay. Saved by the bell. Saved by DL.
I'll just drink twice because I'm that kind of guy.
I'll drink with you, Evil. Here's to you and Kari. It's funny that you said what you just said, Kari, because my favorite Strokes song of all time is Someday. That's the song. That's the song that I heard and said, oh, this might be the coolest fucking band I've ever heard. And it's always stuck with me. You have your favorite band. It's one of the first ones you hear, and you can listen to it a million times, and you never will not love it any less than you did the first time. So there it is. Let's rank the albums. I'm going to start, and I think we're all going to have the same thing.
I'm excited for that.
Least bestest Strokes album for me is Angles, and we talked about why. I don't think it's a surprise. Kari, what about you?
Come Down Machine.
Oh, what the fuck?
Sorry.
Oh my goodness. Wow, you liked that less than Angles.
I did, just because I thought
the 80s-ishness?
The 80s-ishness, and also because it was just a little bit like, what the heck? And when I listened to them as singles, dang, there's some things on here that Come Down doesn't have.
All right.
Come Down's a little monotone for me.
I disagree.
That's okay.
Evil, what's your least favorite?
Well, you can disagree with me as well, because it is also Come Down Machine.
Are you fucking serious?
Yeah. I think it's...
I need to get a drink.
I mean, have you listened to this podcast? You probably should have.
Right.
All right, hold please.
She's on probation.
Yeah. What the fuck kind of hazing is this bullshit?
I'm not going to shit on the album.
Is that Green Spot?
Yes, sir.
Did you see me call that by the fucking cork?
See, I'm going to go get a drink. Comes back with the best Irish whiskey. Okay. Fair enough. You're in.
I want it to be known, Kari, that I called your booze by the cork.
I wondered how you saw it. I was like, you can't see. If you can see that, then you can see that I'm not wearing pants.
That's my Irish coffee
I'm
whiskey.
Like, shit.
Green Spot that's legit.
This is my favorite.
Green Spot
this is my favorite whiskey. So
fuck, she's stealing hearts all over.
So are we? Can we cheers now?
Cheers.
Okay.
Cheers.
Cheers.
All right. Yeah. Come Down Machine. It's not an album by the Strokes. It's a side project that they threw together. It's better as an album as my number 5. Wait, are we doing 5-1 or 6-1?
5-1. We're not doing the album that shall not be named.
So it's better than my number 4.
Wait a minute.
The game's not real and the points don't matter.
This is how
Kari.
things are, Kari.
It's like, you guys know I got kicked out of kindergarten, right? Like, because I was trying to make things too orderly. Yeah, like kids were putting fucking bananas in the microwave, and I was like, "What are you like in the toy kitchen? Like the pretend." And they're. I was like, "You guys, this doesn't work at all." And I would set up the little circles for people to. And
you're selling yourself because if there's anything,
if there's bananas in the microwave.
Yeah.
When I'm working with my band, they're always like, oh boy, here we go.
Oh my God, those bananas are back in the microwave again.
If we could title our episodes Banana in the Microwave.
So many edits.
Your least favorites Come Down Machine, so is Evil's. You cheers to it. My least favorite, I already said that too. We already did this. Jesus Christ. Evil. So Evil, what's your 5th?
Angles.
Okay.
Yeah.
And Kari's is the same.
Same.
Probably.
Yeah. This might start some shit. I don't know. My 5th, my second least favorite is actually The New Abnormal. It just doesn't speak to me the way that the other ones do. What's really interesting is I've talked a lot about how Interpol, for example, it takes me years to figure an album of theirs out. And then I realize that I like it. And I think there's something there with The New Abnormal, with studying for this and realizing that there's a lot more there than I thought, which is ridiculous as a fan. But, when you're a big fan of a band, you end up just You go back and listen to their other shit. You don't listen to their new album that often. So
the new
album.
Not true.
Okay, I should. If the band you love comes out with something that just fucking rocks the shit, then yes,
okay.
that's
fair enough. Why? Tell me why? Where? At what point?
Why?
In time did you start hating Rick Rubin?
I don't hate Rick Rubin at all. I know the question was snark, but I like the question because the reason I like the question is, isn't there a part of us, all of us, that fucking hates Rick Rubin? There's got to be a little bit of us that feels like any of us could have been fucking Rick Rubin.
You know, he self-admittedly, he's like, I have no talent except for my taste.
Exactly. Which I'm not saying is, look, he deserves everything that he's gotten. He's produced insane shit.
Yeah.
I think multiple things on our 10 out of 10 wall.
Yeah.
He's fucking absurd. But there is a little bit of me that's like, dude, I could fucking sit in a fucking room with Jay-Z and just be like, yeah, that beat's good. Go ahead and make that. There's fucking $7 million. Yeah. What are your thoughts on Rick Rubin, Kari?
I plead the fifth and decline to answer, but I would like to ask you a question.
Wait, have you ever worked with Rick Rubin?
No, I have not worked with Rick Rubin.
Well, the way you said that was like, wait.
Just his brother-in-law. No, I'm kidding. Not at all, ever. No. No, and I get kickbacks, but it's fine. No, I may I ask you a question, though, DL?
I mean, yeah.
It's not about Rick Rubin. So you said that you would get music from your mom's friend for whatever company they worked at together.
Yeah.
The undisclosed whatever.
Micron.
When you were in the Navy.
Uh-huh.
Is there anything else that you received in this time period that had the same effect on you as the Strokes?
The first...
That you received specifically from this friend of your mom's?
Yes.
Let's call him Mick Steuben.
What?
I love it.
Mick
Steuben the third.
Kill the Moonlight by Spoon.
Ooh.
Oh, okay.
Which is that's the one that got the Way We Get By and Paper Tiger and all those that album.
Okay.
Those would be the two that he sent that I was like, holy fucking shit. Well, no, and then Soul Coughing too. Like the second I heard,
God.
but
yeah.
Soul Coughing is like the second I heard that I was like, oh my God.
Same.
Oh my God. But yeah, Kill the Moonlight would be the only other thing that probably hit me as hard as this one did.
I was just curious because it's so rooted in that time period.
Absolutely. I will go, right?
Sure.
I sure will. My fourth favorite Strokes album is Come Down Machine. It might change at some point, but I still like All the Time, Welcome to Japan, 50-50, Slow Animals, Partners in Crime. Like there's a lot of really, really great songs on this album. And so it's there for me. Kari, fourth favorite Strokes album or fourth best. Sorry. Are you?
Yeah.
You did...
No, it's favorites now, right?
Okay. Yes.
Right?
Sure. It's
because of the game.
It's whatever you want it to be.
Okay, bananas in the microwave. It's gonna be Is This It?
Whoa!
At 4.
At 4.
Record scratch.
Right.
Holy shit!
Whoa.
That's honestly intriguing.
I'm not
just
surprised.
Didn't find. Save for those 2 singles, I did not find the rest of the album intriguing.
All right.
In the same way that I did the others.
She did say that they got better as they got older.
She did.
That whole like punk for the sake of punk and dressing up in your dad's or grandpa's clothes. Like, I mean, it's all felt so put on to me. Fair play. But it all, like that first album, it felt like little kids putting on a high school show. Like, this is how you play punk music.
Okay.
You know?
It is kind of kayfabe a little bit.
I would secede to that fact that it is a little, we want to be 70s. We want to be Velvet Underground.
Yeah.
Right. Kind of. Or television. Okay. Like, yeah, we listened, even though they said they didn't. But
Evil, what's your fourth favorite?
I don't even know at this point, but I think it's New Abnormal.
Okay.
Yeah. Like I said, that album of the 6 probably has the most potential to grow on me. I think it's the most complex album.
I feel exactly the same way. What's your third, though?
My third is Room on Fire, and I, in parentheses, wrote Cake because that album reminds me so much of Cake.
Really?
Yes. Listen to it.
I mean, I have.
Yeah.
A few times.
Is Satan your motor? Because it is for that album.
God, I love that song. Kari, what's your third favorite?
Room on Fire.
Drink.
OMV. I mean, I better drink with you guys.
Oh.
Hey-o.
It's a triplets. And triplets.
And
Number 3.
yeah, it's my third favorite. I had a really hard time deciding which albums. I think that First Impressions is most overlooked. And Is This It? Is This It? Room on Fire gets a bad rep that I don't fucking get at all. And maybe one of you can help me out with that.
It's sophomore syndrome, honestly. It's sophomore syndrome. When you have an album that did as well as the first one, then everyone, Coldplay went through the exact same thing. Like first album, super hype, super hype, super hype. Then it's like sophomore syndrome. Anytime something's hyped that much, unless you're
Coldplay's first
I
album
don't know,
was so
Bjork,
fucking good.
it's not going to get better.
Are you trying to get me to listen to Coldplay's second album again? That's
Sorry.
rude, Kari.
I was doing so well. I had to throw a wrench in it.
Room on Fire for third. Wow.
Yeah.
Well, I guess now we go with what our favorite is.
No.
Well,
No,
and
two,
then
there's 2 more.
Well, the 2 is automatic. So I will say my favorite, which leads. People don't keep track that well, do they? So we'll just go to our second.
I wouldn't.
Okay.
I'm a listener.
All right.
I'd be like, hey guys, guess what? Here, dear DL, you
Figure
guys
out your
skipped
second
the second one, and I had no idea who your second one was by the end of the night.
Second favorite Strokes album, which means that I'm going to owe a couple drinks for my first favorite, but we'll get to that later. My second favorite is First Impressions of Earth. It fucking rocks. It rocks my socks off. And that's all I'll say about that. Kari, what's your second favorite Strokes album?
Drink. First Impressions.
Yeah.
It's so underrated.
See, much like a listener, I had to figure out what your favorite album is now, Kari. I had to do deductive reasoning. Evil.
Why don't you just wait for her to say it like I do?
What's the fun in that? Evil, what's your second favorite?
Is This It?
That means Kari and I know you very, very well.
Yeah. Well, come on. It's the... Do I go and just say it? Or
Yeah. Go ahead.
First Impressions of Earth is their, dare I say, metalist album. No, it's not even. It's not metal. It's not even close to metal. But it is their heaviest, most rocking album.
It rocks,
and it has such good guitar stuff on it. I full disclosure, first listen, I bounced off of it hard.
Oh.
Like, this album's not good. I don't like it. It's too
Interesting.
long. I don't
long.
like this
It's
fucking
very
music. I want to go listen to Unearthed. God damn you guys for making me listen to these 6 albums. But as I like marinated in the whole catalog, that album was the one that like rose to the top.
good man. Because we did guess your album because we know you so well.
Now,
Kari
let me
and you
back
are
up
basically
because
besties now.
I want to back up because Is This It is fantastic.
Mm-hmm.
And it was, I went into this thinking that it would be my favorite album. I just assumed it would be number 1. It's like the stamp that they like put on the music industry.
Yeah.
Like they will be known for that forever, regardless of whatever else they do. They have that and no one can take it from them. But First Impressions of Earth is fucking awesome.
I very much agree. Kari, what is your favorite album?
You guys know me
by
better
the
than I
Strokes?
thought you did. It's the new Abnormal. Yeah, from the artwork to the losing the shitty tin can vocals to melodies, like actual melodies and dissonance that actually makes sense that it was planned out to be that way. Like for me, it's the best of the bunch for many, many reasons.
The new Abnormal. We both guessed it because we know Kari so well. Besties for life. Yeah, so my favorite Strokes album, You're Welcome, Kings of Leon and the Killers and everybody else that came after this, Is This It? It's a perfect album. It's fucking amazing. Let's rate the band. And Kari, you're going to hate this because I don't think I explained it, but it's really, you get to decide how you rate it.
Oh, right.
Whether it's your Mount Rushmore, whether it's a top 10, whether it's maybe 450th. It's not on my radar. I'll start with me because for me, it's the easiest. I do believe that they are on my Mount Rushmore. I think that they are one of my 4 to 5 favorite bands of all time. And that is saying something, because that is with knowing that I think there is an album or two of theirs that they were kind of doing some throwaway work on. I really love their discography. I think that they've written some really brilliant shit, whether it was on purpose or not. Evil, how would you rate this band for you?
They're not in my wheelhouse at all. And we all know that. Yeah. They came out at a time when I was like, my musical interests were changing dramatically. That being said, I do think that they are one of the best rock bands, like from like the 2000 to 2010 era. They one of the best of that era. They are for sure a banana in a microwave. They're not going to make it on any Mount Rushmores for me, just because it's not my style of music. I had no problem listening to any of this music. There was at no point was I like, this really sucks. I don't want to listen to the Strokes all the time, but I think I'll be listening to them more after this experience.
Awesome. Kari, what about you?
Okay, I'm going to cobble together a rating. Okay. And I feel like they are like filet mignon on a dirty floor, and it's the 5-second rule. And you're like, you really have to decide if you want to eat that.
This makes sense why they're one of my favorites, because I am 110% yes at all times on what you're
That's
describing.
What I mean. Like, yeah, if you're like, okay, and maybe it's not filet mignon, but it's like, it's food. It's food that drops on a dirty floor. And you really have to, for me, I have to decide, like, how hungry am I? I think it's undeniable that they're iconic of a time. And again, the longevity factor is really big. And the fact for me that they matured musically, those are all really good things. I don't know that I would pick up the food.
I mean, that's...
Is there a footprint on the food?
No, it's just a dirty floor.
I eat the shit out of it.
Yeah.
It's like at least a 30-second rule for me.
Yeah.
30 seconds. Okay. Yeah, I gotcha. It's like an ice cream cone that you're eating, and you're licking it like 5 times, and you're like, this is so good, and then you lick it off the cone.
You lost me after filet mignon.
Just finish or get down in there and get the... Okay. It's gone from bad to worse. See what happens? See what happens when I drink the green spot? The second metaphor.
Gets the green spot out, and all of a sudden it's dog and a sprinkler. And
ice cream and filet mignon on the floor with bananas in the microwave.
Okay, maybe edit all that out and just let me say it's like 2 camps below base camp.
At least it's in that part of the world.
Shooting range.
Yeah.
That's the Strokes. Quite a bit to cover. I think we did a fucking good job. As a huge fan of the Strokes, I'm proud of what we have done, and we're not done. We didn't talk very much about Room on Fire, and the reason that we didn't talk very much about Room on Fire is because our next episode is DL's 10 out of 10s, and Room on Fire is what I picked. More to attest to how good I think the Strokes are, I chose this as my 3rd favorite Strokes album, and I'm putting it as a 10 out of 10, which means, yes, I do think that the Strokes might have 3 10 out of 10 albums. That's kind of why I think they're the shit. Kari, Evil, Rachel, and I are all doing Room on Fire by the Strokes. Evil, thanks for joining. Thanks for listening to the Strokes. Thanks for drinking. This has been quite fun.
Indeed it has.
Bananas.
In the
Kari?
microwave.
Kari, are you exhausted?
No, I'm the opposite. I'm invigorated.
Woo! Let's do another episode in 5,
Round
4,
2.
3. Kari, thank you so much
clap.
for joining. Kari, you're amazing. We love you. Thank you for joining us.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you for having me.
It's been actually
pleasure.
fun to be on an episode with you finally.
Yay! We did it.
Evil and Kari, now besties, cheersing together. Join us next week, Room on Fire. Everybody, we love you. Thank you so much for listening. This isn't going to make any sense time-wise. I don't care. You're still going to like hearing it because it's nice. I just got done editing some YouTube stuff with listeners that wrote in talking about the album Dirt, which you can go on to the YouTube and check out. Just thank you, everybody that wrote in and wanted to participate and stuff like that. It's fucking awesome. You guys are all amazing. We love you. Stay listening. We'll stay
talking.
Yeah, we'll keep talking. Good night and good luck.